Saturday. It's again, it's getting you to develop something that can be considered software, something that didn't exist before you came along. Uh, Coming up with this idea was a little bit of a mashup for me. I took some ideas from an Excel spreadsheet that I found online where this guy was putting this URL into an Excel spreadsheet and bringing the information back to a spreadsheet. And I said, well, if you can put that URL into a spreadsheet from Yahoo Finance, this one here, then you could put it into a software program, and the software program could go and get the numbers from Yahoo Finance, bring them back, and show them on the screen. So then I got thinking, well, to do that, you'd have to write some code, right? And but then I got looking a little bit further, and I said, well, wait a minute now. There's this thing out there called Live Code that will help out significantly and get us to the point where we need to be. So in the instructions, what I just went through there was a couple of examples of going to Yahoo Finance and asking for the stock symbol Microsoft and the price of Microsoft stock. And then this second one, I'm asking for the name and the price. So I just get 48.87 there, but this one here, I get the name and the price. And then if you want to get more than one, you just say I want GE plus Microsoft, and I want the name and the price. And that gives you General Electric and Microsoft and the prices for both. So then I got digging, and what else can you get? And I came up with there's a lot of different things that you can ask for. You can ask for the high, the low, the bid, the ask, the name, what it did over the last 52 weeks, and all that kind of weird stuff. So that's where the idea for this project came along. So the instructions the first thing to do is to download Live Code, and to do that, you go back to the page here. Just click on the link here to the Live Code software, and we have to make sure that we download the correct version, right? So we go here to the download link, which is the first link, and we always want the community edition because they kind of disguise the fact that it's free by calling it the community edition. So that's the one that we want. So all they ask for is your first name and your email address, and why are you looking for this? Either you are a programmer, or you're not a programmer, or you're an educator. And then you can download the community edition, and it installs just like any other application on your computer, and it will show up here in your list of programs. So there, there's where mine sits, right on the start menu in Windows, and then the Apple side of my machine, it's under my applications. It's in my applications folder. So that's the software, and it as far as I know, it shouldn't be any problem getting it. Like I said, I downloaded it for both Apple and Windows, and it didn't seem to give me any trouble at all. So what we want to do then is we want to call an API, application program interface, inside our program in order to display the information on stocks. So we're going to create the following using Live Code. We're going to add buttons. And this is just a list of instructions. Basically, add the buttons, add 4 labels, add 4 text entry fields, and that will just make our application more readable. And then the following code is what is on the Apple button. and this is the code. This is the way they write instructions in the live code software. So they create a local variable, and they call that variable X. And then they put the URL into a request, and it goes out to finance.yahoo.com, and it brings back the Apple information, the name and the bid and the high and the low, and those are the four things that we want. And it puts that into X. It puts that into that variable that we created up there. We call it local. It's a local variable only to be used locally or within this program that we're writing. So this program, in fact, owns this variable, and it can get information that's stored in it. So it goes and it gets item 1, says put item 1 of line 1 of X into field name ANS. And then it goes and gets item 2, item 3, item 4, and it puts them into these named boxes. And the named boxes are what's on the screen here. So this is name ANS, or name answer. And this is bid, and this is high, and this is low. And you can have them in any order that you want. It really doesn't matter. And so it goes out to Yahoo Finance. Everything comes back into one line of information, and then it breaks up the line into 4 parts, and it separates the pieces of information, puts them in the boxes, and that's it. So if you wanted to change that for Google, or Microsoft, which is the next one, you would change the AAPL to MSFT, and then you'd have Microsoft. And it would bring back a line for Microsoft. And you'd have to create 4 names, 4 different names for these 4 boxes here. So you'd call it maybe name ANS1 or name ANS2 or whatever you wanted to call it, but it would have to be called something different to know what box to populate. So that's basically how it works. And what I went on to say here was, in addition to all of that, here's some other stuff we can get with these codes. If we go to Yahoo Finance, we can ask for things like volume, what stock exchange is traded on, what was the last trade, what was the trade date, what's the change in percent, what's the previous close, all of that stuff you can get. You just have to tack it on to your request URL. This thing here, you see it has, right now it has S, B, G, and H. And it's bringing back whatever S is, whatever B is, and storing that in our variable called X. So that's what it's doing. So you could mix it up. You could ask for something different. As long as you capture it, make a box for it, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to get it. So what you'll be submitting then is your live code file, and I'll just show you what that looks like. I think I got one here in the Dropbox folder. Yeah, this is it here. So I just called it Stock App for Business 241, and it's a type. It's a live code file, and it's instead of having a .xls or .doc, it would be .livecode. That's the type of file it is. And so you'd submit that up into Moodle, and that's all you have to submit. So when I see your submission, I will download it and double click on it, and it will open like this, and I'll try out your application, and I'll put it in test mode, which these two buttons here are critical because the one on the right is design, the one on the left is for testing. And when I click on the Apple button, it goes out and gets the information and brings it back. Microsoft and Google, it does the same. And then I created this button down below here that clears everything out. So if we look at how that was all done, I'm back in design mode now. I click on the Apple button, you see it doesn't do anything. Because I'm in design mode, it thinks that I want to change something and move it around, so I could actually move this button around, right? I could put it down here, or I could make it bigger or smaller. But I could also look at the code that's behind it. And there's the code that's behind it. Now I did change it a bit from the example that we saw in the instructions. I realized that some of this stuff may have been out of order. So the SVGH is what I asked for, and then I put it into these fields, which is name, bid, high, and low. But it's basically the code that we saw in the instructions. So to create the next button, once I know that worked, right, I just copied that code, highlighted it, right-clicked on it, said copy. And if that works, then I should be able to use the same code over here for Microsoft. Just paste it in. And the only one thing I have to change is put MSFT in there and call these boxes something different. Put a 2 at the end of it, or something, a different name, right? And then I've got it working for that button as well. So these boxes here, they have to be called something, right? So you would create these boxes by dragging them over, same as, these are buttons that I can drag over and create a new button. I can also drag over a field, scrolling field, or text entry field. That's what I use for these. There's the text entry field. And we have to give that a name, same as we gave these a name, right? So if you right click on it and go to properties, we'll see that it is called name ANS. So there's only one box on this whole screen that's called name ANS. Before I put that name in, it was called something by default. Let me just see what it was called. It was called whatever this one's called. It was just called field. So I had to change field to name ANS. And when I created this text entry field here, I had to make sure that I called it something different, right? So it's called name ANS2. And this one over here is called name ANS3. So that's how the whole thing works, is that it puts numbers and words into these boxes, but you have to tell it, so much, right? Because it doesn't know, it can't read, in other words. It has to be told what to do with the information coming in. And that in and of itself is kind of revealing, because a lot of times we would think that, in computer programming, there's maybe an element of artificial intelligence that, surely to God the software would be smart enough to know that there's 3 columns of empty boxes there, and because the button is above, because the Google button is above these boxes, that these boxes refer to that button. No, it doesn't make that connection. It's not that smart. You have to tell it, oh, by the way, put the Google information in these 4 boxes, and here's what they're called. So you have to get down to that level, and it's at that level that computer programmers work at all day. That minute, detailed, specific, where everything has to be correct, and if you miss a semicolon, if you miss a period in your instruction, or a comma, or a quotation mark, you could be there for days trying to find your mistake. So that's really what I'm trying to get across to you, is that this thing that we call computer programming takes a special kind of person to want to write that stuff, and that's easy. Like that can't even be considered a language. It's that easy. But that's how specific you have to be. You have to tell it where to put everything on the screen. And so, to be in computer programming, you really have to like working at the detail level. And computer programs are a massive effort. Massive. There's hundreds of programmers needed to create something like Microsoft Word. There's something like 2 billion lines of code in Microsoft Word. Programmers, if they write 20 lines of code a day, good code that works, it's probably a good day's work. So how many programmers would it take to write 2 billion lines? A lot, right? Yeah. And a lot of time. So it's not easy, and it's not for everyone. But at least now you know, right, how detailed it is. And there's only one piece that I didn't show you, and that was down here in the clear button. Some people asked me to give them a hand with this clear button down here, because I didn't have this in the instructions. But what it is just a matter of saying put empty into name ANS, put empty into name ANS2, ANS3. And all we're doing is putting empty. And what is empty? Empty is nothing, right? To this language, to this live code engine, we'll call it, empty means put nothing in there. In other languages, you might have to put a null value. You might have to put, something like double quote, right, with nothing in between it, not even a space. Just double quote means null, a null value. Other languages might require that. But this one here works on the premise that empty means nothing. So that's how we clear everything out, is by putting empty into all of these boxes 12 times. But when you press the button, it happens so quick that we think, oh, gee, that's magic, right? Because every time we press the button, we get the updated numbers, and then we press clear, everything goes away. So the good thing about this software is that you can, if we save it, just when you save it, it just wants to save it in live code. So when you do a file save as, it'll just call it a live code stack, right? But if you do want to compile